Daniel's Pats, Daniel's Pats interviews, special guest today, Dr. Jack Groppel, a leader in coaching, science, sports. He was a tennis coach, speaker. So he's a legend in our sport. Jack, you are there. So I'm gonna send you the invite. Introducing him. Hey, Jack.
Hi, Daniel. Sorry about that.
Don't worry about it.
Nice to be
Tennis
with you.
players, we always find the solution, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome to the interview show, Doctor.
Thank you.
How should I call you? Jack, Dr. Groppel, Dr. How do you want me to call you?
I don't really care. Everybody in the tennis industry knows me as Dr. Jack, so that's
okay, Dr. Jack.
Yeah.
Dr. Jack, if you are, we are sitting in an airplane in a flight, we get to know each other. Hey, how are you doing? And you ask me, what do you do? I will tell you, I'm a tennis coach. And I will ask you, what do you do?
That's tough, actually, because I mean, tennis is my life. I've been a tennis coach, but I'm more of a life coach and consultant for a lot of different areas right now. But I mean, my beginning, my entire personal culture is around the sport of tennis. So I founded a business with Dr. Jim Lair. We sold the business. We were successful business leaders. We were consultants with Fortune 500 companies. But again, I cut my teeth in the sport of tennis. I'm a tennis guy.
Perfect. How was your day today? How is your day going today?
Oh, great,
so far?
Great. There's a ladies group that I volunteer to coach, and they have a match going on right now. So I just went up and spoke with them before the match starts, and it was fun.
Where are you exactly, Dr.
In Estero, Florida, Southwest Florida. That's where I live now.
Perfect. And you play tennis every day?
Every day. Every day.
What is the most enjoyable part of you playing tennis when you are on the court?
No, that's an interesting question because I just love striking the ball. Hitting a tennis ball gives me pleasure. When I hit a really good shot, that I just go, yeah, that's what I live for, is to hit that good shot. And I just love striking a tennis ball.
If I invite you to my place to see my tennis players, my tennis student junior players,
yeah,
and I said, Jack, Dr. Jack, take a look about my students. What will you look first? What do you, Dr. Jack Groppel, sees first?
Well, first I want to see if they're having fun. I mean, I want to see if there's a lot of passion around, why are they out there? Are they just going through the motions, or is there really something to how what's their why? What does it seem like? Then I would probably look at their footwork. I think footwork is the name of the game. You're a great coach, so I would have high expectations. And then you look at the quality of the strokes, but I think the quality of the strokes actually comes last.
Could you I asked similar question to Carlos Moya.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I will want to see competing, because to me, when you compete, you really show what you are made for. Exactly your level, your mental toughness, etc.
Yeah. I think that's valid. I don't disagree with that at all. But again, I want to see that there should be, I think a lot of people misunderstand competition. And I think at the junior level, I want to see them love to compete. I think a lot of juniors, they start competing and it's a drudgery. It's difficult. There's fear, whether it's they're afraid to lose. I just said to the ladies, I said, what is it that makes a great player? So these are 3.5 ladies that I was just talking to, Daniel. And I said, a lot of people have asked me over my career at 4-all in the third or 4-all in the fifth at a Grand Slam, how is it that a great player can hit an unbelievable screaming backhand down the line? And I said, because they're not afraid to lose. They're competing at the highest level. They want to win more than anybody, but they're also not afraid to lose. And I think that makes a very dangerous competitor, when you love the competition and you're not afraid to lose.
Wow, what a great combination. I've seen 25 interviews from you, and you were talking about your life, how you started. I want wanna make sure this is a different interview,
Yeah,
Dr.
good.
Jack.
Let's do that.
I don't want to go through the same questions, saying
No.
like you said, going through the motions. I wanna make sure it's different.
Good. Good.
Everybody nowadays, everybody talks about biomechanics in the coaching field. Tennis, biomechanics, but what is exactly the definition, Dr. Jack, of
Yeah,
biomechanics?
it's really simple. Biomechanics is the study of human motion. Now, to get there, we apply scientific laws and principles to human motion. But biomechanics in and of itself, mechanics, motion, bio, living. So a living creature moving, and it's the study of that. So, it came from the field of kinesiology, which involves muscles and neuromuscular conditioning and physiology. But biomechanics delved from that, and it was much more engineering type application. But it's really the study of human motion.
How much we as coaches we should explain our students
Yeah,
about biomechanics?
it depends on the student. Um, some students really like the technical stuff. I
Mm.
think I don't think it's necessary, but if they like it, but I think for coaches, I would be aware, and I don't know if you want to go here or not, but there's laws that you can't violate. Laws of physics you can't violate. They're going to happen. Principles, now those are principles of motion that you can utilize either for you or against you, but then there's preferences. And I think the preferences piece is where people, some of our preferences violate the laws and the principles. So that's where we can get into trouble. But I think if we took that approach, laws, principles, and preferences, it would be really a great approach for a coach to take to becoming a better coach.
What laws,
Well,
Doctor?
you start,
Every
gravity.
coach needs to know.
Gravity, law of gravity. It's going to play a role. How does it serve? If somebody's hitting a ball in the net, serving a ball in the net constantly, they're letting gravity work against them. That's why often when we teach up and out, hit the ball up and out, then you can do different spins and bring the ball into the court. The Newton's 3 laws of motion really are the key ones. The law of inertia is the first one. That means that a body will either stay at rest or it'll stay in motion until acted upon by an outside force. So how do you apply that in tennis? Okay, if a lot of people, they're in the ready position and it's like, the ball is going to my forehand, I probably should move. When in fact, the great movers are ready, read, react, go. And the ball's going forehand. And they're literally, they take a little hop forward. When you take that hop forward, you've overcome resting inertia. See, your body's moving forward already. So now you fire the foot and now you're moving forward or you're moving to the side faster, but that's using the law of inertia, but a lot of people use the law of inertia against them. They don't move correctly. Then there's the law, and we can go deeper into any of these.
No, yeah.
Then there's the
I'm
law.
sorry, Dr. Groppel.
Yeah.
The split step, the famous, right? Split
Yeah.
step.
Well, and again, the split step. Again, what if you hit such a great approach shot that it's not going to be an effective return? Is there a need for a split step? Maybe not. If you see that you're going to see a dying bird coming across the net, there's no reason for a split step. Just keep moving forward and then stay in control of your body. Tennis is a control game. Tennis it's control, consistency, depth, and power. But it's first of all a control game. I don't care how hard you hit the ball. If you don't hit it in the court, you're not going to win. So it's a control game. So it's keeping your body in control. The only reason to use a split step is if there's a little bit of an unknown and then you become momentarily stable, but then you pop out of that to move to the volley. So that would be I hope that's helpful.
Of course. Dr. Jack, when we coaches always tell the students, bend your knees, get under the ball. What principle, what biomechanical law we are trying to explain them?
Well, the one, there is that's more biological than physical. If you don't get your legs under the ball, that's the cue that we use. Get your legs down. I'll never forget Tim Gullickson. I was working with Timmy in the early 80s, and he was playing at Wimbledon. He came off the court. So this is grass. And he came off the court, and he'd won. He'd beaten Russell Simpson. I remember the match very clearly. And he came off the court and he's smiling at me. And what are you smiling about? He says, I know I'm really volleying well. I said, yeah, you really were volleying well today. He says, no, you don't understand. You know how I know I'm volleying well? I went, how? And he says, look at my knees. His knees were bleeding. Ooh. And I'm going, dude, I don't know if I want you. But he knew he was volleying well if he scraped his knees. So he was getting under the ball. And Tim and Tom were number 2 in the world in doubles. So the idea that getting your legs under the ball, what it does biologically, you get your eyes closer to the impact point. See, when we stand up too tall and it's a low volley, you're so far from the impact point, and then suddenly you change the angle of the racket face that it becomes really difficult to hit. So it's much more biological. That in the tracking, when you get your legs under the ball, your eyes are nearer to the impact point, and then if you can control the hand and the wrist, you can hit a more effective volley. That's really what it comes down to.
Fantastic. So this is a master class, Dr. Groppel. Everybody will be grateful to you, and your contribution
Thank you.
Never ends.
So
another thing that
there's 2 other laws we want to talk about in physics, though.
Yes, go ahead.
So the second law is the law of acceleration. That says that force equals mass times acceleration. So the more force you apply, the more you accelerate. But you see, we also, as coaches, we have to understand that it works the other way around. The more you accelerate, the more force you have to encounter. So that's why how we started understanding injury a lot more. Tennis elbow, for example, when a player has a little bit improper technique, but they're still hitting really, really hard, their body is absorbing force that's mechanically they're not able to accommodate. So that's one example. And then the third law, which is probably the most important one for tennis, is the law of action and reaction. And that is, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So we see it very often on the serve, for example. Somebody's a right-handed server, their left hand tosses, and as they start to swing, this left hand comes across the body. Now, you don't have to teach this, because if you've got a great throwing motion, the left hand comes across, and what it does, it blocks the trunk, and now the arm just accelerates. So that's the action, and the reaction is the arm accelerating to the ball. So, but the law of action and reaction happens all the time in tennis, and so we as coaches, we need to understand those laws.
Perfect, fantastic. Open stances, Dr. Jack. Everybody, should we teach that?
I don't have a problem with teaching it. I have a problem with understanding what we're teaching. For example, an open stance is great. I mean, I don't want it to breed laziness. I mean, I want it to be an effective shot. And then here's one of the principles. We've been talking about laws. I said laws, principles, and preferences. One of the principles is the principle called moment of inertia. Now, moment of inertia, the best word picture is a figure skater on the ice. When he or she starts spinning, if they bring the arms in, they spin very quickly. All they do is extend the arms and they slow down. So now let's bring that into tennis in the open stance forehand, for example. Open stance, I've got my torque, I've got angular force, I'm really loaded. I've loaded my hips, my legs, my trunk, I'm loaded. Now I start to drive. If I increase this the arm too much, it's going to slow me down. So we have to make sure we understand the rotation of the body, and then how we use that rotation in the open stance, and make sure that they're open stance. See, the benefit of a not necessarily, I don't want to say closed stance, I hate that term, but maybe a step forward or something like that where it's half open. Then you've got momentum going forward for a beginner. So I'm fine with the open stance. I think it's very beneficial for a lot of athletes. I just wouldn't want it to breed laziness, and I would want them to use the principle of moment of inertia the right way. In other words, so that they can rotate effectively.
Fantastic. Many years ago, I saw one of your videos. And we have this conversation yesterday. It was a private, wonderful. I had the luxury to talk to you, and nobody was listening, just me. You said, if you can throw a ball, I have a ball in my hand. If you can throw a ball, you can serve. Is that still?
Yeah, I do believe that. I mean, if you look at a professional pitcher in baseball is a fairly international sport. When they take the ball back to throw, a right-handed pitcher, the palm is down, and then it comes up here into this position. I mean, it's almost the exact as a serve if the racket's in your hand. And then as you start to throw, I mean, what happens is that there's ground reaction force, the linked system, the body's linked system, the kinetic chain. They drive from the ground up through the hips into trunk, and now they start accelerating, and it's just, now in throwing it stays here. In serving, we go up and out toward the ball, and that's that internal rotation of the shoulder, and then what yields pronation at the end. But it's much more internal rotation than it is pronation.
Oh, very interesting. That because as much as everybody talks about biomechanics, pronation is all over the word
Yeah, but you
pronation.
see, it's more like right now. This is internal rotation of the shoulder,
Yeah.
and then as I go up, I'll try to lean back. As I go up, I'm still now I'm starting to pronate here. This is the pronation, but I'm still internally rotating. See my upper arm?
Yeah.
See, so the upper arm is still doing this. So it's a combination of internal rotation of the shoulder and pronation.
And this is something we can practice by
Oh
throwing balls.
yeah,
Football also, Dr.
I
Jack?
believe, yeah, I think a football, by the way, is even better because the way to throw, if you could, like an American football, not football that we are international friends.
Yeah.
So we're in the United States, so it's American football. My apologies to all my international friends. But if you could throw a spiral, that's natural pronation because to make the ball spin and then have a perfect spiral, you've got to pronate properly. It's the proper use of internal rotation and pronation to get the ball to make a perfect spiral. So I think throwing a football is a great way to serve.
Dr. Jack, talking about racket head speed, some coaches are preaching keep your wrist loose when you hit the forehand, let the hand works. I mean, how do you see, because I found it a little bit deceiving for of course works for professional players, but the message to beginners, adults, and even little ones could be a little bit dangerous, right?
Yeah.
What do you think? How loose or not we should keep the $1,000,000 question, Dr. Jack, the wrist?
Well, I'm going to probably make some people angry, but that's okay. Grip firmness is only important for when you hit the ball off center. Grip firmness, if you hit every ball in the sweet spot of the racket, you wouldn't need a firm grip at all. Now, stay with me, because to teach a loose wrist, it's really hard to control the racket face. See, the racket face is critical for control. Again, tennis is a control game. So I think, when a player's getting ready, when they're waiting for the ball, they've got a very loose grip on the racket. But when they strike the ball, they squeeze. They're holding on pretty firmly because most impacts are off center. And if you don't squeeze, the velocity will be the same, but you're going to lose control. The racket face, you'll lose control. So grip firmness is key for control. Now, the way I believe, what I've learned over 5 decades of studying the game is the force comes from the ground, through the legs, through the hips, through the trunk, out to the arm. If you learn how to use the ground, the legs, the hips, and the trunk correctly, I've always taught you let the arm come along for the ride. You don't need to employ the arm. You don't need to make the arm accelerate. You don't need elbow movement. You don't need wrist movement. If you learn to use the body the right way, the hand and the wrist learn to control the racket face. Controlling the racket face becomes key for the hand. And if the wrist is moving, I think it's really hard to control the racket face.
Well said. I want to now go to you talk about 2 words in a conference that I took notes. Energized and engaged.
Oh, interesting.
I love that. You said it in 2015 in a conference. I was listening last night. I love it. Take us through that keywords and for our life, right? Aside of tennis.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about energy first, and then we'll talk about engagement. Energy runs the show. Human beings, we don't have infinite amounts of energy, and we can also have very negative energy. So our goal would be to have high positive energy, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. This is why I said to you when you said, when I see your juniors playing, what am I looking for? I want to see if they're having fun. I want to see if there's high positive energy out there on the court, because high positive energy means they're going to learn more readily. They're going to compete at a better rate. I just think high positive energy. Now, what do I mean by high negative energy? People that don't manage mistakes well. We've all seen the player that throws the racket, that gets angry, that gets upset, that becomes fearful, that chokes. Choking is normal. As soon as we realize that everybody chokes at some point, and we understand that we're safe if we choke, suddenly we can handle choking. but that high negative energy doesn't really serve us well. So we want to understand high positive energy and what it takes. Usually it's why are you playing? What's the role of your support system? You know, if the support system, juniors, for example, if the parent is trying to coach as well. I mean, you know the story about my son. When I adopted my son, I told him if he wanted to play, because of my background in tennis, I said, if you want to play tennis, I'll hire a coach for you. I'm not going to be your tennis coach. I'm going to be your dad. And we have a wonderful relationship. He took up karate and won a national championship in karate. Would I have loved to see him play tennis? Maybe. But we have such a great relationship, and that matters more to me than him being a tennis player. You know, so that's, we can come back to the energy if you want later. Engagement is, you know, do you have the ability to connect, to thrive when you need to? Now, why do I say when you need to? There might be times you don't need to. I mean, downtime is key. You don't need to be the ricochet rabbit, the energizer bunny all the time. We need downtime. We need time to recover. That's why I said energy is not infinite. The human system, the human beings are biological organisms. We have to have downtime. We have to have time to recapture energy, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So when you do that, and then you can, then when it's showtime, whatever showtime is, can you access all of your energy on demand? Can you bring your energy to the surface on demand? That means you can be engaged.
Fantastic. This is what the champions do, right?
That's exactly what they're able to do. They're able to access all of their talent and skill on demand.
On demand. It's funny because I meet, you know, I met and I'm still meeting so many coaches, tennis coaches, and they are introducing themselves like, hey, Daniel, nice meeting you. I'm a high performance coach. They say. I say, oh, well, nice. Good for you. What is a high performance coach? If it does exist, I don't
My
know.
friend, you're putting me on the spot.
I told you it's going to be different.
Yeah, because what is high performance? I mean, for me, if you're teaching beginners, high performance is getting them to learn basic skills. You could be a high performance teacher. Now, if you've got a world class player, high performance is, what if you've got a great player, but they can't get any higher than top 50 in the world? Are you not the best coach? Are you not a high performance coach? I mean, see, I think you have to be careful with high performance. I get it, but the idea of player development is from beginner to number one in the world. It's not just the top 50 or the top 10 in the world, you know. So the idea, I think everybody's a performance coach. Everybody should be a performance coach. You know, I mean, why are we not if we're not performance coaches? But if I'm a grassroots teacher, I want to be a high performance teacher. If I've got a high school team, I want to be a high performance high school tennis coach. You see what I'm getting at?
Absolutely.
I think
this is an amazing
I think sometimes
message.
we give nomenclature, we give names to something that we don't even know what we're saying. Sometimes.
Yeah, but Dr. Jack, but the directors of clubs, owners, CEOs, in so many jobs descriptions, they ask for high performance coach. You know, they do it. They are probably guilty of that. The directors, the owners.
Yeah.
I want a high performance coach for my club, my country club.
Well, I think the coach better decide. I mean, the owners need to say what that is. I mean, do you only want somebody that's had top 20 juniors in the country, or do you want to see? This is where I would push back on owners and club managers. Or do you want somebody who's going to be an unbelievable grassroots teacher and is going to build your membership like crazy because everybody wants to come to your club and learn to play tennis? See, if I'm a club manager or an owner, that's the pro I want. I don't necessarily need the pro that's going to be traveling and working with the top players who doesn't have the time for my members. So call me jaded, but I think we got to be careful with some of these terms.
Fantastic. You enjoy watching tennis,
Oh
Jack,
gosh, I
nowadays?
love it. I love it live. I'm not so good watching it on TV, but live tennis, like our college teams here near me, I love watching them practice. I even go to their practices. I love watching them practice. Because I just love seeing a quality ball be hit. That just that's my day.
If you have to choose one female and one male to say these two guys were the best competitors I ever seen in my life in a tennis court.
Wow. Well, on the female side, I mean, there's you can't say one. I mean, Serena obviously, but you can't not think of Graf and Celis and um, as competitors. Justine Hannah Hardin, you can't not think of them. I mean, any of these that have won multiple Grand Slams, I mean, you just can't. I don't think you can say one. Yes, Serena won more. You could, if that's your benchmark, yeah, go with that. You know, in the men, I mean, obviously we got the big three right now that have just, Djokovic is in the twilight, but the other two are stepping back. But again, you better be careful getting rid of Courier and Sampras and you know and then Connors and McEnroe and Smith and Ash. You got to be a little bit careful. Laver, I mean, you're really not going to include them. You know, Laver still to this day is the only man that's won 2 calendar Grand Slams. I mean, yeah, Djokovic has won more Grand Slams, makes him amazing. But to just say there's one, I think you got to be a little bit careful because there's so many different ways to win in our game. See, none of those players I mentioned, the men or the women, they don't have the same game styles. Everett and Navratilova, they never had the same game styles, but they both were number one in the world.
Dr. Jack, we teach game style, or that is something the players develop on themselves?
Well, there's a personality that a player has that I think we as coaches have to really build on. You know, um, I mean, there's a famous story about Pete, and I never talked to Pete's coach about this, Pete Sampras, but for him to go from a two-handed backhand as a junior to a one-handed backhand, that was a pretty big move for him in the juniors.
How
And
old he was, Dr.
I
Jack?
don't remember. I think 13 or 14.
Oh,
I don't remember exactly though. Your listeners can probably help us on that one.
yeah, I think
Um,
14. Yeah.
I think, but to make a change at that age of that significance, and then to become number one in the world, and to have the backhand that he did, that's just incredible. So again, the personality of the player, we as coaches, I mean, this is a high performance coach who understands their players so well that they can adapt their coaching style to that personality and to that game style. That's a
Excellent.
powerful concept.
Going back to the champions, you are sitting in your desk with a coffee or tea. I don't know what you like to do. What is your favorite drink?
Well, I have coffee every morning, but I have tea in the afternoon.
Okay.
Herbal tea. I drink herbal tea in the afternoon.
Beer? You like beer and dinner?
Every now and then, but not
Ah,
very often.
okay. Wine?
Oh, every now and then, but not very often.
Yeah,
I'm
like
pretty
me.
careful about
We
alcohol.
share the same thing.
Okay.
So you are sitting quietly, comfortably, peaceful afternoon, chilly outside, and you said, "Okay, Jack." You tell yourself, "I'm gonna write down 5 or more, I don't know, characteristics of the mental uh, side of these champions. What they share in common."
Problem solving, confidence, mistake management, visualization, and recovery. Those 5. They
Can
could recapture energy very quickly in between points to perform at the absolute highest level.
it and it's a probably silly question for you. I don't know, but I have to do it. Can we teach that?
Well, for example, can you teach confidence? The itself, no, but you can create situations where a player can develop more confidence. Likewise, you can create situations where they lose confidence. Visualization, sure you can. Recovery skills, recapture energy, sure you can teach that. Jim Lair wrote the 16-second cure. I mean, one of the most famous videos ever done on the in-between point time in tennis. It was for me, that was one of the significant contributions in the 20th century to sport, was the 16-second cure, what athletes are doing when they're not competing, in the moment they're not competing. The idea of, give me another one. I mean, I think they can be taught, but not. See, I think where we struggle with teaching those things is intellectual teaching. It's experiential teaching. You teach them experientially. You give the athlete experiences so they can build on top of each other, on the foundations, to be able to build those factors. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course it does.
And we as coaches create experiences to build those. It's not necessarily, I think where we struggle with, can you teach that? Intellectually teaching? No, not necessarily, but experientially, absolutely you can.
Yeah, but I'm going to share with you something that I'm facing every day, Dr. Jack, is the lack of tolerance, lack of patience. The kids nowadays, they get easily distracted. It's a difficult generation to teach. The tolerance to mistakes. I don't know. I can't remember how it was 20 years, 30, 40 years ago. But how we should teach the new generation of kids?
Okay, we're getting in a little different topic, but okay, let's go there. And you got to understand that I have a 20-year-old son, so I've just experienced all this. This generation is growing. It's the first generation to actually they were born with technology. Technology, whether you like it or not, has done a brilliant job of marketing. Whether you like it or not, it's been brilliant in that we saw this during the pandemic most readily. You could sit at your home, in your couch, have amazing stimulation of your brain, and be connecting with someone across the earth, around the world, and playing a game with them. And again, whether you like it or not, it's brilliant. It's just brilliant. So we've got to understand as teachers, as teachers of an activity, as teachers of tennis, that we have to create experiences that create joy and fun and stimulation for these kids. They come to us, and who knows why they're coming to us. I mean, for all we know, their parents are making them come to us. If that's the case, that's another hurdle you have to jump. The idea that that we can just flip a switch and change that, we can't. We have to get to their level. We have to get to their level, and we have to help them understand, help them be stimulated. So we have to make the game enjoyable, make the game fun. The worst thing we do is push at the grassroots level, because the kids will say, screw this, I'm going to go play my video games. Pardon my language, everybody, but that's the attitude. So is that on them or is that on us? Have we not made the game fun enough? Or so I really challenge us to look in the mirror, and can we make the game more stimulating and more fun to bring people in and connect with people more readily? Because whether you like it or not, it's been brilliant what they've done to stimulate the brain. I don't like it. I think it's terrible, but it's still brilliant.
And high performance players, competitive players, national rank, whatever you want to call, 15, 16, 17, going to, academies, group training, hitting cross courts, down the lines. What would you do now differently if you would have to coach them now compared with 30, 40 years ago in a training session?
In 87, I was the director of player development for the Hopman camp at Saddlebrook. I mean, so, I worked with Howard Moore and Tommy Thompson and that whole group, Alvaro Betacure. I was with all of them, and I was the director of player development. And I think if you look back on those days, I think what they were able to do and what I was able to help with was really creating joy in being a better player, creating having fun being a better player. Now, again, some of the parents forced the kids to come to the camp. So we had to deal with that then, even though technology wasn't as readily available as it is today. But how I would teach differently is constantly be thinking about how can I engage the students today? How do I engage as a coach? How do I engage my students? And what kind of experiences can I give them that will be fun for them to try to solve? You know, I mean, when I worked with world-class players, I mean, I always had we always finished every workout with three drills. And they're the stupidest drills in the world, but every player loved it. One would be dink volleys, where you just play in one service box and you can't hit anything hard. Everything's a dink. But your footwork has to be amazing, because if it's a dink, if you get lobbed, it's just in one service box. And the touch and the footwork is amazing. Then you play mini tennis, where it's the 3 bounce long rule and the 2 bounce wide rule. So you really can't hit anything hard at all. It's got to be extremely soft. And then we play a drill I learned from Arthur Ashe, and because of that, when Arthur was the Davis Cup captain, we called it the Davis Cup drill. And you play on half the court, one up, one back, and you only score points when you're up. But if you're up, you cannot drop volley. All you can do is hit a drive volley and an overhead. If you're back, you can do anything. You can dink, lob, or drive. And that game, if you start getting mad at yourself, you get snowballed. So we always finished every workout with those 3 drills. And the athletes loved it. They wanted to come back. And that was really fun for me, to create that kind of joy at the end of every workout.
Fantastic. And talking about creativity, right? To be creative.
Yeah, that's what I'm challenging everybody. I'm challenging everybody to be creative.
No, Dr. Jack, I'm seeing academies, they do the same boring warm-up every day, same drills at the end of the session. I say, God damn it, they don't have any creativity, these coaches. I mean, everything is the same, doctor.
Okay, that's where we as coaches have to hold our feet to the fire. And we have to hold our feet to the fire and hold ourselves accountable, that we're looking in the mirror and making the right decisions for our tennis players, whether it's grassroots or world class. Are we creating an environment where they will learn and improve at whatever level they're at? That's the key, and that's the challenge that we as tennis coaches have.
That is a fantastic statement. I'm gonna make a reel. You're gonna make me work so hard with reels, because short clips of this conversation.
Should I apologize?
This is amazing. Are you having fun, Dr. Jack?
I'm having a great time. I hope everybody's enjoying this.
Oh, of course. Please, about, you talk about the spirit, the spiritual part, emotional, mental, and physical, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So we should take into account all 4 concepts
Always.
when training, right?
Always. Every workout involved the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. Like, why are we out here? The spiritual. What really matters to us? Is it all about winning? Or what are we gonna do today? And you vary it. Play points and try to win. You know. But I think you're always as a coach, you're always dealing with that. That's what makes a great coach. You're multidimensional in how you look at every individual.
Should you ask the students that question that you're?
I mean, you can, but I think a good coach can see it pretty quickly. I think that's what makes a good coach, is seeing the personality and the adaptability and the ability level of our players. And then how do we adapt our coaching and teaching to them? See, it's not them adapting to us. It's us adapting to them. Because everybody comes to us with different talent and skill. For us to use the same old, the same technique all the time in teaching, well, first of all, that makes our job monotonous. That doesn't challenge us. But I challenge us. I mean, I don't know if I've ever worked with anybody and had the same thought about how I'm going to teach them something. I've always thought about, what is the best that I can do for this individual?
You talk about the spiritual part, mental and emotional part. How do you?
Yeah. Well, the mental is, and this is interesting in our world, because this comes back to the kids in today's society. The mental is, how laser focused are you? How much confidence do you have? Because we live in a world that we're very scattered. See, we live in a world where we're bombarded. I mean, the phone that we're doing this on right now, I mean, before 2007, smartphones didn't exist.
Exactly.
You know, the internet in the last 25 years, it didn't exist 25 years ago, 30 years ago. It didn't exist in the way it does now. And we are, we didn't used to be accessible. When we left work, it was hard to find us. Now we're accessible 24/7, 365. We're accessible every minute of every day the rest of our lives if we make that choice. And that's where we have to really make decisions and help people understand. Because remember, coming back to talking about today's generation, nobody's ever taught anybody. I mean, think about in the last 25 years, we've lost all of our boundaries. We've lost all of our intentionality. Nobody's taught us how to make the right decisions. And yet these kids are coming to us with no boundaries, no intentionality, and we're trying to teach them a sport. I mean, talk about opposing ends running into each other. So we have to really be adaptable as coaches.
The emotional part, right?
Yeah.
Now we have so many mental coaches and psychologists working with.
Yeah, the emotions comes back to that energy piece we talked about earlier. How well do you manage mistakes? When you asked me about the top players in the world, I said they can manage mistakes very well. I think mistake management is a key skill for players to learn. The ladies I just talked to, the ladies in the league group, you know what I said to them? It's a very windy day here in Southwest Florida. And I said, don't let the wind be your third opponent on the other side of the court. They're playing doubles. I said, let the wind be your partner. Go out there with that mentality. Don't go out there with, oh crud, the wind is awful. No, go out there and engage the wind. How are you going to use the wind to help you win today? And then I said, you're going to have to move your feet a lot more because of the wind. It's not, if you miss a stroke, it's probably going to be because your footwork and you didn't keep moving to the ball and the wind took the ball from you, that kind of thing. And then we talked about how do you warm up? Just warm up real close to each other and just touch the ball. Get the ball in the center of the racket. Then start moving backwards and and then I said, build the confidence level of the impact point. And then I finally said this. I said, the most important thing you're going to do in this match coming up is play the next point. Nothing else matters because they're playing somebody that's in a higher level in the ratings than they are. So they're right away thinking they're going to lose. And I'm going, okay, 50% of the people that play today are going to lose. So you might lose, but on the next point, do you have a shot at winning? And they all looked at me. Yeah. So just play every point. Just play like that. The point that's over, you have no control. It's gone. The point that's coming up, that's all that matters. If you're down 4-1, all that matters is the next point. If you're up 4-1, all that matters is the next point. Nothing matters. Don't let the game get bigger than it is.
Dr. Jack, coaches, tennis players are obsessed about grips. As soon as I post in Instagram, any player, which grip is Daniel? Semi-Western, Eastern? I don't know, man. I mean, they just hit the ball. How much importance we should place as teachers, coaches with grips when teaching little ones, the grassroots?
Well, again, this is, remember, laws, principles, and preferences. Remember how we started? This is a preference. This is a preference. I don't think this is a law or a principle, because you could teach somebody an Eastern grip and then somebody else a Western grip, and they can hit very effective shots. So that's a preference. Now, people have strong feelings about these different grips. I respect feelings about these different grips because I think at the end of the day, your preference, as long as you're not violating the laws and the principles, the preference is going to be fine. So, I mean, I'll never forget when I was really getting started in all this. This blonde Swede shows up in the World Four of tennis called Bjorn Borg. And his strokes were so unorthodox. And everyone thought there's no way. Well, 5 consecutive Wimbledons later and several French Opens later, everybody goes, the guy might have a career, I mean, but he seemed unorthodox. And I would just challenge all of us that what seems unorthodox, again, does it violate laws? Does it violate principles? And is it only a preference? That was a preference to him. He was I took high-speed films of him at Madison Square Garden in 1981, and I mean his impact zone was just perfect, unbelievable. Now he had a different way of getting there, but he was perfect at impact.
Somebody in the audience said, "Ask Dr. Jack. He likes to understand the difference between laws and principles."
Laws and principles. Okay. Well, the laws, the best one, you can't violate laws. Like the law of gravity, you cannot violate the law of gravity. The law of inertia, you cannot violate. The law of acceleration, you cannot violate. The law of action and reaction, you cannot violate. I'll give you a situation where athletes will violate it and make a mistake. The two-handed backhand. Very often when somebody's learning a two-handed backhand, they don't have a very good base of support, and they drive the ball and they go forward, and the back leg, the leg that's in back, rotates around the opposite direction. Now, that doesn't mean anything if the ball has been hit. But if the ball hasn't been hit yet and that back leg starts coming around in reaction to the rotation, they could lose control of the racket face. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Okay.
That's where the law of action and reaction could work against the player. But if the ball has been hit and now the back leg starts going around the opposite direction, no problem, because the ball's gone. Do you see what I'm getting at? Does that make sense?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so then principles. I think the best one is that moment of inertia. You know, torque and moment of inertia, how you load the body. You don't have to load that much, but that if you do, you know, and then do you lose control? You know, like the figure skater on the ice. Those are principles. They can work for you or against you. You can violate it, but it may not help you so much. And then the preferences is what you prefer. Like we just talked about with the Western grip and the Eastern grip. You know, those are preferences. As long as the impact zone is perfect, I don't care what grip. I don't care. Does that make sense? I mean, and I know this might go counter because a lot of us have so much, we're so strong in our preferences, but I just challenge us, let that go and make sure it's not violating laws and principles.
If you would have to make changes, right, in tennis to become more attractive for the fans, spectators, would you make any change in the rules and the scoring system? Or I don't know, they did already tiebreakers, right? We don't have more long sets in the Grand Slams.
Yeah.
Would you make any change in the scoring system, Dr. Groppel?
I don't think I would. I mean, I really wouldn't. I don't want to lose the integrity of the game. The game has so much integrity right now. If anything, I mean, I'd love to see doubles get more publicity and I'd love to see doubles get more accolades and more interest. The problem that I think we run into, and you know, and this is one of the things that I contributed to in my career, our athletes are bigger, faster, stronger than they've ever been. The equipment is better than it's ever been. So we've created a kind of a monster in some ways, because these 100-mile-an-hour forehands, you know, that was really hard to hit with a wooden racket, if you know what I'm saying. So we've got bigger, faster, stronger, and is that the best for our game? And now I'm not saying we're not going to certainly change training, but we learned about physiology and nutrition, and we were able to work. We learned about periodization and how to peak at the right time, and how to peak for the Grand Slams, and how to peak, you know, and I think those are some of the things that I contributed to. So if anything, we might want to look at, can we slow the game down a little bit? I mean, to make it more of an art, because right now there's so much power, and that's attractive to a certain extent. But I think Wimbledon, for example, I love watching grass court matches. I just love it because I've been to Wimbledon. I love the aura of Wimbledon. I think it's incredible. But if you step back and you realize that the average point on the men's game is 1.3 strokes or something like that, all right, is that really great for television? A serve and maybe a return, you know, but yet with the big three, and when you get it, see, Wimbledon is two different tournaments. The first week, it's very, very fast grass. The second week, the grass is pretty worn, and it's a much slower surface. So the points become better in the second week, and I think the enjoyment factor goes up. You've got better tennis, better athletes, and a little bit longer points. And this has all been studied really well. So if anything, I would want to start doing some research on, is there any way we could make the game more of an art instead of the power game? game that it is right now? And that would be the general question I would ask, Daniel. I don't have a solution for that yet.
We have 7 more minutes. Time is flying.
Oh,
So
is that right? Oh
yeah,
my.
I wanna finish. I would like to finish. First of all, again, thank you so much for your time. It's
Well, I've
I
had
can
fun.
no, we can speak hours and hours and hours. I
Yeah.
know that so many topics, but we can't cover everything. But I'm gonna put you in a place of giving out advices. So for a group of people, right? First to the managers, tennis directors, CEOs of country clubs, then to the parents of the kids,
Okay.
coaches, and finally to the junior players.
Okay. So you want to start with managers and owners?
It's up to you. No, I don't want to forget adults
Okay.
because they are the ones
Well,
paying, who
I think for all of those groups, the one thing that I would hit on that I wish we did a better job of, and I was interviewed in Time Magazine when they came out with that piece regarding tennis being the healthiest sport to participate in, because I did a lot of research on that. I wrote one of the first articles about that in 1995, 96, about the health benefits of tennis and the 34 reasons to play. And the USTA reprinted several thousand. I mean, I know they did 10,000 prints, and then they did another 10,000. I mean, several thousand reprints of that. And I think your audience can look it up online, the 34 reasons to play tennis that I wrote in the 90s. I don't think we've still done a very good job of marketing the health benefits of tennis to the general public. Even though I know that USTA is committed to that and they're doing a lot, I still don't think we have. I don't think because I think that if any parent whose child is not participating in activity, if they understood the health benefits of tennis, I cannot imagine a parent saying that I want to see my child trying tennis. I want to encourage my child to play tennis. It is the sport for a lifetime. So for a parent, take a look at this for your kids. For a club owner, if you want to get more members at your club, let's help them get healthier. Let's get that word out to help the adult community get healthier. For the competitor, tennis is an unbelievable training sport. I mean, see, this was, you can, at the beginning level, you can play tennis to get fit. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm not competing anymore, but I play tennis every day to keep my fitness level up. I'd rather play tennis than get on a treadmill. I'm sorry. I'd rather hit a tennis ball and get a nice workout that way than get on a treadmill and do that, or a bicycle. I'm sorry. I like tennis. That's just me. But then you can get fit at the top level, or the top competitive level. You have to get fit to play tennis. See, because the demands of the game are so. This is what we did in physiology. That we were able to improve the training techniques with nutrition and recovery and physiology, and how we helped make that bigger, faster, stronger. We helped athletes, their longevity. I mean, how many players? Connors and Rosewall were the only ones playing in their late 30s. Now, how many are playing into their late 30s? A lot. So teams, whoever thought there were going to be teams supporting athletes, but we know that whole multidimensional aspect. Tennis is the greatest activity in the world when you take all the different positive factors and you put all of them together. The competitive argument often is basketball. Basketball is a great sport, unbelievable sport. But let's be honest, you could always blame something on something. You can blame a bad pass, or you didn't cut in time. Try that in singles in tennis. In singles in tennis, if you make a mistake, you are on your own. And we as coaches can help bring people along and help them grow. And that's one of our roles, is to help them along and help them adapt to the stressors created by our great game. Our great game is unbelievable for the brain and for the physiology. I mean, there's nothing like it.
and
So that's where I would start.
and the coaches, message to the coaches.
The coaches, be adaptable. Don't get rigid. Make the game fun for you to teach and coach. Understand that none of us have the answers. None of us have all the answers. If we're really going to be great at what we do, we have to have a childlike curiosity like no other on what's the best way to help this individual become better. It's not a cookie cutter. It's not cut and dried. It's a challenge. So as coaches, we have to be adaptable. How can we be better at what we do? That's my challenge for coaches.
Fantastic. And any book coming up?
I do. I'm writing my memoir right now on my life. A lot of people look at all the successes I have, but as you know, that a few years ago, my son and I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro,
Wow.
and he was 12 years old. I have artificial knees, and we climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. And the title of my memoir is called "What's Your Mountain?" And it's about people's lives, and I tell my story. And my life has been very successful, but there's been a lot of very difficult times along the way as well. So I'm telling the whole story, and that'll
Fantastic.
be out late next year.
Oh, late next year. Okay.
Late next year.
In the meantime, Dr. Groppel, another a friend said, ask Dr. Jack, how can I get the books that you wrote in the 80s, in the 90s with Jim Lehr? Are they still available?
A lot of them I think you can still get on Amazon.
Okay.
Even though they might be out of print, I think they're still in different book clubs and shelves, so you can get a lot of those still out there.
Because I have it on fabulous books. I love it. I ate it. I didn't read it.
I want to share this with you. I found this. You mentioned yesterday in our private conversation about my career and everything, and the things, my legacy and things like that. I'd be really remiss if I didn't share with you this.
Please.
Vic Braden was such a mentor to me, and he was doing a lot of biomechanics research too. And Vic wrote this to me in 1978, Daniel. Wow. It says, Jack, looking forward to some fun research projects. Tennis has waited for a long time. Vic Braden, July 28, 1978.
Wow. And
I wanted to share that with you and your audience, that, my legacy in biomechanics and physiology and nutrition and what I've done, in training and everything, understanding ground reaction forces and the body as a linked system. I would be really remiss to not bring up Vic as a mentor of mine.
And the last question, any aspiring, tennis coach who wants to coach, he or she should be a good tennis player to coach tennis?
Well, I don't think you have to be a good tennis player. I think you should have adequate skills. You should definitely try to have, and I use the word adequate intentionally. I don't think you need to be a great tennis player, especially a grassroots teacher. A grassroots teacher can be anybody. Any of us could teach. I think if you start working at top levels, you've got to understand what it's like to have competed. When I was working with world-class players, I never played at a Grand Slam. I played Division I college tennis, but I never played in a Grand Slam. So I always would yield to other coaches who competed in Grand Slams. Even though I was still with them at the Grand Slams, I would never try to not be who I was. If you see what I'm getting at, I would never go outside my own identity. So I think anyone can actually teach the game at the grassroots level. You got to learn. But do you need to be a great player? No, not necessarily. But if you're a high school coach, you should have competed. You probably should have competed in high school to be a good to understand what they're experiencing. That's all. Just understand what they're experiencing. Now, you could say, well, I competed in basketball. You probably could help a high school team then if you understand competition. So I'm really very open and adaptable when it comes to who can teach the game.
Fantastic. Dr. Jack, I'm very grateful. Thank you so much. God bless you. And I hope we're going to stay in touch.
God bless you. This has been really joyful. I hope your listeners have enjoyed it.
I love it.
I've enjoyed it. It's been fun. It's been kind of a fun walk down memory lane of biomechanics.
Yeah. So it's going to be uploaded in my YouTube in the next few hours. So I'm going to share the link and thank you. It's going to stay in the profile. So I'm going to share it with you right now.
Okay. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you, Dr. Groppel. Bye, everybody. See you next time. Bye-bye. Take care.